This past summer, I was invited to the Royal Archives at Windsor Castle doing research for my series on the Glücksburg heist that many of you have told me that you are enjoying. The day I was at the castle was a confusing one for many of the international visitors, who instead of seeing these scarlet-clad, bearskin-wearing soldiers of the Brigade of Guards on ceremonial duty, saw for part of the day rather more diminutive men of Asian appearance, dressed in blue patrol jackets instead of scarlet, and wearing small pillbox hats instead of bearskins. Many visitors didn't know who these men were and why they were posting guard at one of His Majesty's palaces. Well, to those in the know, of course, these men represent an extraordinary military relationship that stretches back to 1816, and to a country whose highest point is Mount Everest. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your crazy neighbor. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. It feels great. It's well weighted, perfectly balanced, and extremely fun to fidget with. This holiday season, you can give the gift of better habits with Fume. Head to tryfume.com/Mark Felton and use the code Mark Felton to get a free Fume topper when you order a journey pack. Again, tryfume.com/Mark Felton, or just scan the QR code on screen. Grab yours now and make someone's holiday unforgettable. At Windsor that day were men of the Queen's Gurkha Signals, one of the support units of the Brigade of Gurkhas, itself a last active relic of the old British Indian Army, consisting today of 4 individually cap-badged units for a total of over 4,000 Gurkha contract soldiers. Sometimes disparagingly referred to as mercenaries, this would be a very negative connotation onto a fine and long military legacy involving volunteer soldiers serving the British Crown. So prized are places in the ranks of the Brigade of Gurkhas that young Nepali men compete at a rate of almost 100 applicants for every place, meaning that the British Army only recruits the very best. British officers still serve in the brigade alongside Gurkha officers who have been promoted internally, and in 1991, as a 17-year-old preparatory to going to university, I competed for selection for a commission in the Gurkhas. Back in the day, the route to a commission in the army often started before university. You would complete courses with various units that you were interested in perhaps joining, to sponsor you through the regular commissions board, and then on to the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, which you attended after graduating. I did courses with the Royal Anglian Regiment and the Royal Corps of Transport, and later the Adjutant General's Corps. But I also tried the exotic Gurkhas. Service in the Gurkhas is an attractive profession, and the number of places available to potential British officers are incredibly small, so competition was extremely fierce. Ultimately, I wasn't one of the lucky ones to achieve sponsorship in the Gurkhas, but the selection course I undertook with one of the Gurkha infantry battalions was absolutely fascinating. Dispatched by train to Church Crookham in Hampshire and the headquarters of the 1st Battalion, the 7th Duke of Edinburgh's Own Gurkha Rifles, I and the other potential officer cadets were immersed in the peculiar nature of this strange survivor of the British Empire, a battalion of Nepalese infantrymen commanded by a mix of Gurkha officers and Gurkhali-speaking British ones. Both of my grandfathers had served alongside Gurkhas in World War II, one in Italy and one in Burma, and like most British veterans had only exceptionally good things to say about these fierce but amazingly friendly Gurkhas, whose motto is "better to die than be a coward," giving some idea of the fear these little hillmen put into Germans and Japanese in the war, and more recently Argentinians. For the 1st 7th Gurkha Rifles had, 9 years earlier, fought in the Falklands War, where Argentinian troops had run away rather than face the Gurkhas, much to the Gurkhas' abject disgust. undoubtedly and rightly terrified of the kukri knives that every Gurkha still carries in his battle order alongside his personal weapon and bayonet, a fearsome bladed weapon from Nepal, ideal for chopping wood or chopping off heads. My enduring memory of my course with the Gurkhas was their incredible friendliness, professionalism and humour, and their fearsome curries. Having the opportunity to charge around Salisbury Plain with an L85A1 rifle in the company of some of the world's finest infantry soldiers was a literal boy's own adventure come true. The British and the Gurkhas became friends by trying to kill each other. In 1814, the British East India Company was expanding British control of India northwards, bringing it into conflict with the belligerent Kingdom of Nepal that sits on the north of India's border, its neighbour mysterious Tibet, the roof of the world. During fighting, both sides developed a respect for each other's abilities, and the British failed to annex Nepal due to the fierce Gurkha resistance. So instead of taking prisoners, the British officers offered contracts to the Gurkhas to serve in the East India Company's armies, and later, of course, in the Army of British India itself. So from 1816 onwards, Gurkhas have always been represented in the British Armed Forces. A whole series of Gurkha regiments were formed that fought in many of Britain's colonial campaigns, building up a stellar reputation for loyalty, fighting prowess and professionalism that made the name Gurkha a byword for military excellence up to the present day. Remembering that all Gurkha soldiers remain citizens of Nepal, they serve on contract to the British Crown, swearing an oath of allegiance to the monarch that they take very seriously. World War I was the great test of this friendship, and over 90,000 Gurkhas served in that war, with 20,000 becoming casualties, including 6,000 killed. In World War II, Nepal again sent the flower of her young men to help the British, with 110,000 serving in the campaigns in the Western Desert, Greece, Italy, Malaya and Singapore and Burma, with almost 30,000 killed or wounded. 12 native Gurkhas were awarded Britain's highest award for gallantry, the Victoria Cross, during those two conflicts, and several more went to British officers in the regiments as well. With the granting of independence to India in 1947, Britain decided that it wanted to retain some Gurkhas, and a deal was made to transfer 4 rifle regiments, including the 7th Gurkha Rifles, and 3 supporting units to the British Army, with the rest of the Gurkhas being retained by the new Indian Army, which still has them today. By the 1950s, the Brigade of Gurkhas was headquartered in Hong Kong, the British colony on the coast of China, with 6 infantry battalions across 4 regiments, with one of those infantry battalions stationed in England at Church Crookham on a rotational basis. In Hong Kong, Gurkhas provided the backbone of the British garrison, securing the border with China and providing internal security, and also acting as a Far East mobile deployable force to regional trouble spots. The inclusion of a battalion of Gurkhas in the far-flung 1982 Falklands War was a reflection of their excellence as soldiers. In 1994, the government sadly amalgamated the 4 Gurkha regiments into one new unit, the current Royal Gurkha Rifles, and following the handover of Hong Kong to China in 1997, the brigade was reduced and moved to Britain permanently. However, the continual employment of the Gurkhas on operations has seen the brigade expanded. Gurkhas have served in Kosovo in 1999, in East Timor and Sierra Leone in 2000, and also served repeatedly in Afghanistan until recently. Today, the brigade consists of the following units: the Royal Gurkha Rifles, with 1 battalion based in England and 1 in Brunei, plus 2 special operations companies, both part of the new Ranger Regiment. The Queen's Gurkha Signals of 5 squadrons, as well as 2 independent troops, 1 in Nepal, supporting British Gurkhas Nepal, and 1 in Brunei. The Queen's Gurkha Engineers of 2 squadrons, based at Maidstone and Kent, and the 10th Queen's Own Gurkha Logistics Regiment in Aldershot. There is also the Gurkha Allied Rapid Reaction Corps Support Battalion, made up of men cap-badged across various Gurkha units who serve alongside British troops, and the aforementioned British Gurkhas Nepal, who are in charge of Gurkha selection and recruitment, running 3 depots in the Himalayan country and also dealing with Gurkha veterans and their families. Additionally, there are also 4 independent Gurkha companies, all named after famous battles, that act as training units: the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, the Infantry Training Centre Catterick, the Infantry Battle School Brecon, and Waterloo Lines Warminster, respectively. Gurkhas receive the same pay and conditions of service as regular British soldiers, and the right to settle in the UK at the conclusion of their military service. So if you see the Gurkhas providing the guard at Windsor Castle or Buckingham Palace, or perhaps parading at the Edinburgh Military Tattoo, you will now hopefully have a little better understanding of who they are and a little of their glorious history in the service of the British Army. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.